Now girl can't see me and cause problem. Them a man clown so me walk on them. Me no love chat but me I want them. Tell them this a real Shen anthem. Now girl can't see me and cause problem. Them a man clown so me walk on them. Them a man clown so me walk on them. Me no love chat but me I want them. Tell them this a real Shen anthem.
Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I'm Jessica Viviana, and if you do and you've been here, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the different types of ecosystems and then their characteristics. So first you have to start with what an ecosystem is. So basically an ecosystem is the interaction of the living organisms with their the physical components of the earth. So we have two main types of ecosystem, which are aquatic and then terrestrial. We also have two other types of ecosystem, which are the mixed ecosystem and then the artificial ecosystem. So the artificial ecosystem are ecosystems that were created by man or by the influence of man, like reservoirs and then others. And then the mixed ecosystem is like the combination of both the aquatic and then the terrestrial ecosystem. It's like wetlands and then mangroves and the rest. So moving on to the main thing, which is the terrestrial and then the aquatic. But then before that, we have to talk about the importance of ecosystems. So studying the ecosystems will help farmers know what crops to grow at what time. And also, it will help know what time to do what. And then studying the ecosystem also helps scientists know the relationship between the organisms and then their physical environment. Marine ecosystems have a high salt content. They also have a variable temperature in respect to the temperature of the sun. Marine ecosystems also have high turbidity as a result of their salt content. So with the mixture of the salt and then the minerals in the water, the water is very turbid. That is, you can't see through it that much. And some organisms that live in the marine ecosystem are arthropods, planktons, sharks, and fishes that live in salty waters like the oceans and then the seas. Light content in marine water bodies is lesser than the light content of fresh water because as a result of the turbidity of the marine water bodies, light is not able to penetrate down deep into the water. Therefore, planktons, phytoplanktons in the water find it difficult to trap the sunlight, that is, making it difficult for it to reproduce. Now moving on to freshwater ecosystem. So freshwater ecosystem occupies a less space than the marine water ecosystem. Those examples of freshwater ecosystems are rivers, ponds, lakes, and then wetlands. So freshwater system has a less salt. Freshwater ecosystem has less salt than marine water ecosystem. The temperature in freshwater ecosystem also varies as the temperature of freshwater ecosystem also varies as that of the marine ecosystem does too. So as I mentioned earlier, examples of organisms that live in freshwater ecosystems are phytoplanktons and then other fishes that live in ponds and then lakes. For freshwater ecosystems, the phytoplanktons that live in them don't need thick waxy cuticle, which will help sustain the water in them because the water outside enters the stomata of the phytoplanktons, which helps regulate the rate of water in and then with the environment of the phytoplankton, which helps in reproduction. So these are some human factors that affect the marine and freshwater ecosystems. Some of these are climate change. So as the climate changes, if the sun goes to a higher temperature, there will be drought, which reduces the water content in marine and freshwater ecosystems, making the fishes in the water need more water to sustain. Another example of climate change, which affects the ecosystem. The aquatic ecosystems are flooding. Overflooding will distract the habitats of the fishes in the and then the phytoplanktons in the ecosystem. Another factor that affects the aquatic ecosystem is pollution. Moving on to the terrestrial ecosystem. So the terrestrial ecosystem occupies 30% of the world. The terrestrial ecosystem is the main component of the terrestrial ecosystem is land. So the terrestrial ecosystem also has 4 divisions, which are the forest ecosystem, the grassland, the desert, and then the tundra ecosystem. So moving on to the desert ecosystem. So the desert ecosystem is basically dry or barren land, and then it is basically characterized by high temperature and then low precipitations. So examples of plants that can be grown at desert ecosystems are the cactus we all know. And desert ecosystems normally don't have a lot of animals because of its dry nature. The soil of desert ecosystem is very dry due to the high temperature it has. And as I said earlier, it has a very high temperature, so the climate is very dry. Now to the tundra ecosystem. The tundra ecosystem is mostly seen in Arctic regions. Those are the cold regions. So they are mainly treeless regions, mostly on top of mountains. They are mostly of high snow content. That is, they have a lot of snow, and then in the summer they have a lot of wildflowers there. So some plants that can be planted in tundra ecosystems are short grasses and then wildflowers. So some facts about tundra ecosystem are they are very cold. It's mostly dry, and then it has permafrost. That is, the first layer under the layer under the first layer of soil is mostly snow throughout the year, like it's ice. It is frozen throughout the year. Then it has few organisms in them. So moving on to the differences between aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. So for the terrestrial ecosystem, its main component is land. That is, it happens on land. The whole ecosystem happens on land. And then for the aquatic, it happens in water. So its main component is water. Then moving on, the second one for the terrestrial, there's hardly shortage of light in the terrestrial ecosystem because day in day out the sun shines, so there's renewal of the energy. So there's always light even in the night. We have the moon, which is a source of light for the terrestrial ecosystem. But for the aquatic, even though light shines the sun shines in the day, it is hard for the organisms in the water to reach, especially in marine ecosystems because of its turbidity and salinity. Then moving on, the gravity has high effects on terrestrial ecosystems than organisms in aquatic ecosystems. This is because gravity on land is stronger than gravity in water. Because gravity in water, the depth of the water reacts with the depth of the water has an impact on the weight of the organism, therefore reducing the gravity in water.